All right, I have got some rough looking cast iron here. This is a Dutch oven that I've been meaning to clean up for a while, and I finally have time. So I want you to stay with us just in case you've ever wondered how to refurbish old gnarly looking cast iron like this. Walk with me for just a couple of minutes and I'll show you just how easy it is to clean up old rough looking cast iron, get it as good as new or as close to it as we can, and re-season it so it's ready for a lot more years of use. I've had this Dutch oven for quite a while and I've put it through some wonderful use, but I'll also admit that I have let myself abuse it just a little bit. I put it in some of my camping gear and I think that it had a fan sitting on top of it that had some batteries that actually exploded or something, and their acid got down here on the top of it and roughed it up pretty good with a lot of rust that I need to get rid of before I put this into good use again. So I wanted to talk through how you need to do that if you've got something similar, or if you find the perfect piece at a Goodwill or a yard sale or something, or antique store maybe. Cast iron is never worth throwing out. It's totally restorable, and that's what we want to do today. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off all my jewelry. So I've got a ring on and a watch. I need to get that taken off so that we can get right into this and make it look nice. Also, I've got a good pair of gloves that shouldn't wear through because I'm going to give them a little bit of abuse with some metal scratchers, and I don't want those to be so thin that they wear out. And they may. Grab a couple of pairs just in case you need them, but I've got a good pair of gloves. Next, I've got a couple of these different options. These metal bristly type sponges are the perfect thing for this kind of thing, because when you've got rough surface like this, when it's that bad, you might need to really get into it. So starting with these is going to be the first line of offense on this. And then I'll graduate to some steel wool, and this is wonderful, the very finest steel wool you can get. When it has 4 zeros across it, that means it's the finest steel wool. And if you get it with numbers, it's going to be a coarser grit, and that will work just fine for this as well. But I've got the finest grit that I can get. And then I've got some soap, and you've probably heard some people say never use soap on your cast iron. That's in a normal everyday setting when you're just washing it to reuse the next morning. We're not doing that. We're actually refurbishing, so we kind of want to strip off all of the old grit and grime that is on there, clear down to as close as we can to the iron, and then we'll put it with some nice new seasoning that will prepare it to be used again. The soap I use is Castile soap. It's got olive oil in it and does have some oils, and I appreciate that about it, so it seems to me it should work fine. But if you have regular Dawn or Joy or dishwashing detergent that you like to use, that will also work for this. So those are all you need. And also it's good to have a piece of cast iron nearby that's your goal, because I don't know that I'll get this quite this nice, but this is a little frying pan that I use often, and when it's seasoned well, you can see the sheen against it. It's got a wonderful non-stick surface that literally I'll use almost every day for my morning breakfast, and wipe it out with a paper towel and it's good to go. I don't have to do anything more than that. That's what makes this such wonderful stuff to cook in. But this is my goal, to get this looking like. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to go ahead and brush off all of that loose rust. And I don't want it going down the sink, or I would put it in there. You can also use a wire bristle brush for this. All right, I'm about there. You can hardly tell it from the look, but I had to go out and get this wire bristled brush that I used to clean the grill, and that has helped immensely in getting the last bit of that off. Around the edge here, it had eaten so much into the surface that there was some pitting, and it was really hard to get it off with anything but the wire bristled brush. But I'm very thankful for being able to have that. I've got it about as good as I can here on the lid so far, but you'll notice something when you wash up your cast iron. Once I've got all of the oil off of the surface, it really wants to oxidize quickly as soon as it starts drying and is exposed to that moisture. So you're going to notice this pale color of rust that forms on it very, very quickly, and that's just fine as long as you've gotten it off. And again, as soon as we get the oil on it, it'll be nice and dark and it'll take care of that. But for the tools that I used, I'll just go through those again. I used the wire bristle brush from the grill, and that helped to have that. I also used this wonderful heavy-duty metal scrubby brush, or scrubby sponge of sorts, and then I used a fine steel wool to get the last of the surface rust off. And I've got it pretty good. There are a few pits and stuff that battery acid really did a number on, but I'm fine with getting it as good as I have. And so now we'll quickly wash up the bottom, which isn't nearly so bad, and we'll get some oil on this so that we can start its seasoning process. So literally all I have to do to get this nice and ready to be used for many years to come is just to start by rubbing every little bit of this piece down with some good oil. And I recommend an oil with a high smoke point like vegetable oil or walnut oil, but not olive oil. It just doesn't have a smoke point that's high enough to handle the heat we're going to put this into. You're going to wipe down every surface, even the legs, even the bail, and every little nook and cranny so that none of it gets exposed to moisture or air, but has a thin coat of that oil. And don't coat it too thick because you'll regret that as it drips off and could even ignite. Once you've got it wiped down, you're gonna warm up the oven to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, or I think that translates to about 177 Celsius. I recommend putting a thin layer of tin foil either on the bottom rack or on the bottom of your oil to just catch any drips that you might have come off of the pan to keep it from getting on the elements down below in the oven. Always put it upside down, and you'll do this for any kind of cast iron, whether it's a frying pan or such. You're going to put it on the lowest rack, put the lid on the top rack, and we're going to bake this for about 30 minutes. All right, there you have it. A perfectly seasoned and much, much happier piece of cast iron here. I just baked it for about an hour and brought it out. It's still warm, in fact, but it's allowed all of that oil to burn off or soak into the cast iron, and that's just what we wanted. So this should be good to go for another 50 years. But I would say if I use it a lot, about every 2 to 3 years, I should do a good cleaning and seasoning just like we did today. I hope you've learned something and this has been helpful. Will you take the time to share this with a friend? And before I see you again, if you haven't subscribed already, will you take a minute to subscribe and hit that bell button so that you know when our next videos are coming? Take the time this week to be a blessing to someone else, and we'll see you next time. Before you go, let me give you this wonderful little piece of scripture. This is out of Psalm 103, verses 2 through 5. It says this: "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your sin, who heals all your diseases, and who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, and who satisfies you with good things, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles." Now go spread the word.